All right, today we're going to dive into a spiritual practice that's, well, it's ancient. It's incredibly powerful, but it's also, let's be honest, pretty misunderstood. We're talking about biblical fasting. And trust me, it's about so much more than just having an empty stomach. It's really about having a full heart. So let's get right into it. Okay, so when I say the word fasting, what's the first thing that pops into your head? For a lot of us, right, the idea seems kind of simple.
Is it really just, going hungry, skipping breakfast and lunch? Well, the thing is, the biblical idea of fasting goes way, way deeper than just that. It's not simple self-denial, and we're going to see just how deep it goes.
So what are we really talking about here? Let's unpack a much deeper definition. Okay, check this out. Biblical fasting is basically a voluntary, powerful spiritual discipline. It's used to intensely focus on God, and it's always paired with two things: prayer and a really specific, heartfelt purpose. Think of it this way. It's a choice you make, right? It's not a diet plan. It's an intentional pause, hitting pause on the physical stuff so you can really focus on the spiritual. And that leads us to maybe the most important question of all. Why? What's the goal here? If it's not just about skipping meals, then what's the point? I just love this quote. Biblical fasting isn't about the absence of food. It's about the presence of God. That really nails it, doesn't it? It's like you're making a statement. You're saying right now, my spiritual need is more urgent than my physical one. You're literally setting aside your body's comfort to go after God's presence with everything you've got. And you see this all over the Bible. People fasted for some really specific, really powerful reasons. This wasn't random at all. They were doing it when they needed God's direction for a huge decision or to show just how sorry they were for their sin. They do it when they were pleading for deliverance in a crisis, or even just to prepare for some massive spiritual task ahead. Take Queen Esther, for example. She and her entire people were facing complete destruction. And what did she do? She didn't just tell everyone to wring their hands and worry. No, she called for a fast. It was this massive collective cry for help, a desperate plea for survival, when it looked like all hope was gone. And then, of course, you have maybe the most famous example of all, Jesus. Before he even started his public ministry, he fasted for 40 days out in the wilderness. And you got to understand, this wasn't some kind of hunger strike. It was this intense period of spiritual prep work, getting strengthened for the incredible challenges and temptations that he knew were coming. Okay, so we've talked about the what and the why, but what about the how? How do you actually do this? Well, Jesus had some really clear things to say about the right way and definitely the wrong way to go about it. Yeah, he drew a really sharp line in the sand. He said the wrong way is to do it for show, to walk around looking all gloomy so that everyone pats you on the back and says, wow, look how spiritual they are. But the right way, he said, is to do it in secret. It's meant to be this private act of devotion just between you and God. Your motivation, well, it's everything. And this right here, this gets to the absolute heart of it. Fasting is not a way to twist God's arm. It's not a hunger strike to try and force him to do what you want. Not at all. It's a tool that's meant to change you. It's about aligning your own heart and your own will with his. But wait, there's another super important layer to this. The prophet Isaiah gives this really strong warning that fasting is basically meaningless if it's just some private inward ritual. He says true fasting has to be connected to outward action. We're talking about justice and compassion. He says something like, to share your food with the hungry. I mean, think about it. An empty stomach doesn't mean a whole lot to God if your hands are also empty of helping others. All right, so this next point is actually really interesting, and it might surprise you. Is fasting something that God actually commands believers to do? Let's dig in and see. So, the big question, is fasting required in the Bible? Is it a rule for everybody? The answer, for the most part, is actually no. I mean, think about it. When you look at almost all the famous fasts in the Bible, we're talking Moses up on the mountain, David pleading for his child, Jesus in the wilderness, even the early church looking for guidance. Every single one of those was voluntary. They were personal choices coming from a place of deep spiritual need. In fact, get this. In the entire Old Testament law, how many fasts did God actually command for everyone to do? The answer is just one. And this is it, the one exception, the Day of Atonement, or Yom Kippur. This was the single annual fast that God commanded for all the Israelites. It was a national day, The whole community had to fast together as this big corporate act of repentance. But every other fast you read about, a personal choice.
And, that choice isn't just about food either. The Bible shows us that the whole principle of fasting, that idea of intentionally setting something aside for spiritual focus, can actually take a few different forms.
So first you've got what we'd call a normal fast, right? That's abstaining from all food. But then there's also a partial fast. Think of Daniel, who chose to eat only simple foods and cut out the rich stuff like meat and wine. And believe it or not, the principle can even apply to activities. For example, the Bible talks about a married couple choosing to temporarily fast from intimacy so they can totally devote themselves to prayer.
But you see, in the end, it all comes back to this one powerful central idea. It doesn't matter if it's food or a luxury or even an activity. Fasting is a way of declaring that your greatest need, right here, right now, is spiritual, not physical.
And so that leaves us with a final question to think about. What area of your life, what decision you're facing, or what burden you're carrying, are you being prompted to intentionally lay down, just for a season, so you can more fully seek God's face?